Hi, my name's Anthony Turner from the Small Business Institute. Today, my guest is John McDonald from AusIndustry. John, welcome and thank you for some time today.
Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here.
John, probably a lot of our listeners and viewers have no real idea about the breadth of services that AusIndustry provides for small businesses in Australia. Could you maybe just give us a bit of an overview of who AusIndustry is and the sorts of services that are available potentially to small businesses?
Sure. Look, AusIndustry is the predominant source of advice, support and programs for Australian small businesses, as well as other business sectors across the Australian landscape. We are part of the Federal Department of Industry, Innovation and Science, and I guess our aim is to bring together the range of programs and services that the Australian government makes available to Australian businesses and offer those in a concise, clear and user-friendly manner. We do that through a number of ways. Business.gov.au, which is the Australian government's business website, if you like. www.business.gov.au.
And that's a really good resource now, isn't it? I mean, I remember times when it was a bit difficult to manage, but now the clarity of business.gov.au is just so simple. Search functions and things like that.
I'm glad to hear you say that because we are spending a lot of time, effort and energy consulting with business people to improve that. And right at this moment, that site is being upgraded as we speak, but we see that as a constant process.
Yep.
And in fact, we'd be very keen to talk off camera with your organisation and your business mentors to get their input as to what they would like to see in terms of functionality and how information can be provided.
Sure, happy to help.
Yeah, so there's business.gov.au. We back that up with an integrated contact information line.
Yes.
So that if people go onto the website, they see something, they can download the fact sheets, they can get the information, but there's still a question or two that they might have.
Yep.
Or perhaps they're in a regional or remote part of Australia, they can't access that website at that particular time.
Sure.
They can ring that information line, 13 28 46.
Right.
And there are skilled and trained operators.
Yep.
Who are especially equipped to answer a lot of questions about the things that businesses need as they move through their business cycle.
Right.
As they're planning their business,
Yes.
before they take that big step, as they start, they take those first early steps of setting up the business, registering a business name, thinking about their product and service, getting it out there to the community. And then as they sustain and grow, that's what we've tried to do with our programs and the way in which we communicate our services. And the third aspect is that we actually have a network across Australia. So people like me,
Yes.
and particularly in regional Australia, we've got best part of 20 regional managers in regional centres right across Australia who are able to provide face-to-face service with the local business community.
Yeah.
So it's an integrated package. We think it's one that works quite well. But as I say, we're constantly looking to improve.
Sure.
And we're interested in feedback.
So John, governments typically have, I use the word agendas, but I don't mean it in a negative sense. It's more they have directions and focuses that they want to help grow. And obviously governments can't provide funding to everybody who may think that they want funding and who think they may have a right to funding from a government. What are some of the sort of directional focuses of AusIndustry at this particular point in time, and some of the programs that potentially are available to assist businesses within those areas?
you're right. Firstly, if I could make the point that the small business sector, which is a key market for you guys, is the fastest growing sector in Australia.
Right.
And in fact, that is the case right around the world.
Yeah. Which is why it's called the engine room of the economy, I guess.
Absolutely. And that's where we're seeing a lot of innovation, a lot of new startups,
Yes.
a lot of growth potential, and a lot of new business opportunities.
Right.
And we're really seeing those coming out. So in response to that, AusIndustry have a range of programs that, as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about business.gov.au, there's information and support around the startup phase.
Yes.
There's information, support and grants about the growing phase, depending on the sector
Yes.
and depending on what the business is actually trying to achieve.
Yep.
And then as the company is consolidating and expanding and growing, there is support there too. So
Right.
there's two broad types of grants. There are what we call entitlement grants,
Right.
which means if you do the things that we as a department and the Australian government wants a company to do, then you will receive that grant.
Right.
So we're very much about an innovation economy. We're about research and development, going beyond where we currently are to reach new levels, to reach new opportunities. So one of our key programs, if not the key program, is the R&D tax incentive, which provides tax rebates through the taxation system for companies who are engaging in research and development.
Okay.
So without going into the details,
Sure.
if you do the research and development and you meet the criteria, you will receive the benefit. And
Right.
that's what we call an entitlement grant.
Okay. Yep.
Another example where we're really trying to foster an international economy is our TradeX scheme, whereby if something is imported into Australia and then subsequently exported, there is the capacity under this scheme,
Yes.
a cash flow saving of 15%, which it represents the requirement not to pay import duty and GST.
Okay.
Import duty is normally about 5%,
Yep.
GST 10%, 15% cash flow saving if you're importing a good and exporting. And that good can be in its own form or it can be in a modified form. So it can be as simple as importing a white t-shirt, screen printing it and exporting it. In fact,
Okay.
you don't even have to screen print it.
Okay.
That's how simple it can be.
Okay.
So they're entitlement programs.
Mhm.
And again, as I say, they're focused on the knowledge economy, doing better than we currently do,
Sure. Okay.
competing globally and internationally.
Right. Yep.
There are also competitive programs. So we talked about R&D just now. Think about what is the hopeful and desired outcome of R&D. It's that you may develop a product or a service that you can then commercialise.
Yes.
So we have a program called the Entrepreneurs Program, which has many different elements to it.
Right.
But one of the elements is to help commercialise products and services that you own the intellectual property for, that have come out of that R&D process.
Okay. Yes.
That's a competitive program
Yep.
and requires co-funding from the successful applicants.
Okay.
And the idea of that is that we're trying to keep the good ideas in Australia that once Australia lost and went elsewhere.
One of the things that I've noticed, John, is that in the past, and I don't know whether this is true of today, a lot of the those sorts of fundings that you're talking about have been mainly available to larger businesses as distinct and established businesses, rather than the ones that are sort of in that more innovative growth phases and their early stages of development. Is there support also for those more fledgling businesses rather than the more established ones as well? Or are these programs available to both?
just giving you the example of that entrepreneurs program, that element that I referred to was called accessing commercialisation.
Right.
Absolutely. You don't, in fact, even at the point of application, have to be a legally constituted business. You can be an individual.
Okay.
However, if your idea is good enough, your commercialised product or service, and we can see the potential in it and we think it's worth funding support, yes, then we would ask you to set up a company structure. But you don't even have to be a long-term business. You don't even have to have established a business in that particular situation. There are other programs that are about helping existing and established businesses grow, get better, improve, and so on.
Yes.
But yes, accessing commercialisation is a classic example of, as is Tradex, a classic example where we do not require long experience in business or anything of that kind.
Fabulous. One of the other areas you touched on before, John, you were saying that there are certain industry areas or regional types of businesses and things like that that are focus points at the moment. What are some of those to give the listeners, viewers a bit of an idea of the sorts of industry sectors where they're more likely to have support available to them as distinct from others maybe?
Sure. As part of the government's agenda, if you like, of creating a more knowledge-based economy, a more internationally competitive economy, they've looked, they've analysed, they've done research on some key industry sectors where, as I say, we already have runs on the board.
Yes.
And we have capacity to grow that even further. Some of these are ICT, Information Communications Technology.
Yes.
METS, mining, engineering sector. We are looking at defence. We are looking at food and agribusiness.
Yep.
In a broad sense, we're looking at regional Australia, supporting regional Australia and supporting regional economies through a number of measures.
Yes.
We're also looking at areas that are increasingly becoming relevant, like high value manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, if you will.
So like biotech,
areas like biotech, nanotechnology, pharmaceuticals and med tech, those areas, and areas like cybersecurity.
Okay.
So these are areas that are of they're hot topics, if you like, across the world.
Yes.
They're areas where there's a lot of change, there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of advancement, and we don't want to be left behind as a country. We need to be up there in those areas, taking our place in the world. And so that's what the government is trying to do. And in some of those sectors that I've mentioned, we, being the Australian government that I represent, they've established industry growth centres. So it's not the government telling the industry what it should do, how it should proceed. These will be non-for-profit organisations, initially funded in part by the government, but increasingly over time by the industry itself.
Okay.
Industry representatives will form the base of those organisations, and they will develop plans and initiatives, strategies and activities to harness the future opportunities of those particular sectors and address particular problems. So if food manufacturers are having particular issues with the storage of fresh food and vegetables, for example, before they go to market, government, through the industry growth centres, can help support those initiatives which may involve interactions with universities and researchers and other bodies to help that sector knock off that particular problem that they have.
Fabulous. So John, just in wrapping this up, probably the best place for anybody to go to get information about the range of services that could be available to them through AusIndustry would be business.gov.au?
Absolutely, business.gov.au. It not only has access to all of the AusIndustry programs, other government programs, support, advice, information at the federal level, also at the state level, and often at local government area as well. So again, I mentioned before, you might have a regional situation. If, for example, in this wide brown land, an area is affected by floods, or drought, or bushfires, and there's emergency relief being put out there, or services to businesses to help them get back on their feet. That's the sort of information that you can find at business.gov.au. There are special links to search for grants, called Grant Finder. There are special links to search for business advisors, Advisor Finder. In terms of hardship, which I just mentioned, a business may need some counselling support. There's even links there for local businesses to find out where counselling services for business and other community groups can be found. There's business templates on marketing plans or business plans and strategies. So it's not perfect. We aim for perfect. We're not there yet, but that's our goal.
Fabulous. And look, I can attest, I mean, I've actually been on and used some of the business.gov.au resources myself, and I actually love their apps, the MyBiz apps and things like that, where you can actually do business planning, you can do market planning, and you've also got one for disaster recovery planning as well. So, I mean, and they're great apps that anybody can use, very easily put in their information, and, you know, some great tools for any of our business owners to actually use. So, yeah, I'd suggest get onto business.gov.au and have a bit of a play around and search. And one of the things that I've personal experience of using business.gov and or other government websites, get onto the website and use the search function. It makes life a lot easier than trying to search through stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing about that website, and thanks for your endorsement, because it really is great to have that feedback, you can register for updates.
Okay.
So you don't have to be going back day after day after day to hear of some new program announcement. You can register on business.gov.au for program updates, changes, or new program initiatives, and you'll be instantly notified.
Fabulous. John McDonald, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Anthony. Pleasure.
Good.